All right, so third lecture video for Sprint 1 Week 4. We are back in Unity. This is exactly where I left off. I was in the title scene. This was my working canvas. Remember, I was rebuilding it again with the video going to show you what it looked like. So they're exactly the same. So I'm just going to turn mine back on. And remember that these buttons each are going into the intro scene, the tutorial scene, and the level scene. So let's do the tutorial scene and the level 1 scene. Those are easier. So all I did here was create a canvas. Actually, I was kind of lazy. You can drag in the title scene, and then I wanted this canvas because I didn't want to rebuild it. So I'll show you can take the canvas and the event system from your title scene and remove the title scene. Just be very careful to say don't save because I pulled stuff out of it. And then you can reuse this to delete some stuff. Anyway, I took the canvas because I was lazy and I repurposed, I think, the intro button into the home button. So I'm going to delete that. I just showed you how I brought it in. It's a canvas. You only need one event system. And that's why some of this stuff is turned off like this. And I'm not sure how else I'm going to build this. So I didn't even bother with a panel or anything. I turned everything off. All I have is the home button. And as you can see, the home button is just going back. Actually, I asked you the last time if you could figure it out. And if you did, you're just reusing the set scene method on the canvas UI function. So since I dragged this in from the other scene, the canvas UI script was still there. Otherwise, you could just drag the script on. If you built the canvas again, you could just drag the UI script onto it. In either case, the canvas has the UI function script at the root, and the button is calling that on the canvas object and is calling the set scene method and is saying go to title scene. That's it. That's all that's going on for the tutorial scene. And the level 1 is the exact same thing. Canvas, there's a home button in the bottom left. That home button is anchored to the bottom left so that when you move this around, it stays in the bottom left. And it's going to the title scene. So updating these two is super easy. And once that's done, you can test it. Make sure you can jump back and forth. So level 1, home. Tutorial, home. Perfect. So we can get back and forth from those two without reaching a dead end. You never want a dead end in your navigation. Even though we're not building out those scenes, that's as far as I got. But at least you're not dead ending in there. So especially for user testing, that's extremely frustrating. You know, and you don't want that. All right. So the big thing for this video will be the intro scene. So it has a canvas. That canvas has a UI function script on it, and you notice that there's some stuff here, and I'm going to go over this. But it's using the same script that it's in all the canvases and all the scenes. And I did it for that reason. It's super easy for entry-level programming. So what else do we have here? We have the panel, which takes up the full game view, full camera. It's the color of my game, the theme color. It's the same thing. I have the big thing here is this text element. I used to have two in the other one. This one is just I created a text element, and I called it intro text because it's the big text box I'm going to use for the whole intro. And if I move around, notice that it's pretty big. And over here you can see I have it stretched. And I mean, I guess you could. It doesn't matter. The numbers don't change. It's not really going to be stretching in that up and down as much. I don't know why I did that, but you're going to get the same result as this. But in either case, I'll switch it over. It's just centered up. And it's this high, you know, there's some nice border area around it. You don't want your text bleeding right to the top, right to the edges. And I just started with I filled it out. Welcome to Bubble Sort 3D, and then that lead-in sentence. Learn computer science principles by interacting with 3D objects. Sure. And I got to go over the new thing for you, anyways, is this image and how to just bring in images. But before I cover the image, let's just cover some stuff that makes sense. Is we have our buttons. So these are just positioned like the home button is positioned in the bottom left. See, it's pinned there. The back button is bottom right. Even though it's technically not in the right corner, it's more right than center. And I wish it to be more clamped over with next. So it's bottom corner right. Next is bottom right as well. So we got 3 buttons. The home button is easiest to approach. It's still set scene because we're just going back to title scene. So it's calling the set scene method. The back and next button we will have to deal with. It's calling another function, and I'm not ready to deal with that yet. But you could duplicate them and move them over and give them a name and give them a nice label. And I think that's it. Yeah, text, you just have to make sure. I mean, you can just copy these dimensions if you want to, but you can see it's big, but it doesn't overlap with the buttons, and it doesn't get too close to the edges. So this is new. So it's game object, UI, image. And all I did was I brought it in, and it's still centered up. I didn't even mess with it. It's just pinned in the center. These are the positions. And I'll tell you how I got this width and height in a minute. So first off, I just went and did a Google search, and I searched on bubble sort. And I'm going to want you to put in an image here. This is part of the requirement for your prototype is put in at least one image, because you're going to need to know how to do this down the road as you get more into graphics. But yeah, there were some good visuals of what bubble sort is, but it wasn't a really fun, playful thing. But I started looking through here and clicking on them, and I think ultimately I was able to find some type of, I don't even know how I was hunted through here, but somehow I found this bubble sort image. I probably just kept clicking through and getting different lists of images. Yeah, in whatever case, you know how to use Google search. You right click, save image. The only thing I wanted to make you aware of is first, make an images folder through Unity. Make your life easy. Put all your images here. So once you have the folder, then go and hunt around and find some images and say save image as. And I just happen to go right to my location, assets, images, but you would save it here. So once you do that, there's a few things to note. One, notice the others have arrows. This one doesn't. So when the images come in, I did default the project to 3D. So images are coming in as default to be applied as textures on 3D geometry. If you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. But if you want to use it in the user interface, you're going to have to use it as a sprite. So sprite graphics are 2D graphics, but they're meant to be used in algorithms meant for 2D graphics, not 3D. So you just have to, in the import settings of the file in your project, switch it from default to sprite, and then it'll be usable in your UI. You have to click apply. And we're just doing a single sprite. You can take one image as a series of images within it and chop it up, and that's like a sprite map or a sprite atlas, and it's a way to bring in multiple images at once. But we're not doing that. We're just doing single right now. But the trick is that now there's an arrow. You can open it, and you see that underneath here, this is our sprite. Perfect. So I'm going to go create another image, UI image, and just show you that here's a new image. It comes in like a square. You would call it whatever the name. Notice how I called it here. and you would connect your sprite to it. You could also drag it from the top and it'll connect as well. So it's either run by color by default, or if you plug an image in, it's an image. So now when you click on it, notice that my image size is 600 by 343, and it looks really weird and it's squashed down. So you have to set your width and your height to whatever the native dimensions of the image are. And if it's too big or too small at that point, then you can scale it up or down, but at least the dimensions on the image are correct. Note that if you're plugging an image in through a UI image, you don't want to also have a color, or else you're going to overlay additional color on top and it's going to look weird, or maybe you want to do that. Just keep it white. That's about it for importing in an image, and since I already have one here, I'm going to delete this one. Now, so I covered bringing in the image, some default text. The text box is large. It fills up the whole screen, the buttons. I think I got to start covering the scripts now. All right. So this is my completed script. So again, you don't need to use my whole script. You can go off on your own. You can just use a subset of it, whatever. There's a million ways to achieve, one type of programming problem. This was my solution, and I tried to make it as straightforward as I could. So if you see here, this is the public void set scene, right? This you've already been introduced to last week. We have using Unity Engine, using scene management. It looks like I had, this can go. It's dark gray, I'm not using it. Actually, these can go, I'm not using them right now. So I can simplify this so it's not at least too overwhelming for you. So notice I am saying using TM Pro, this Text Mesh Pro, because I am going to be manipulating the text component of this text object here to keep updating the text as we move through it. So just ignore stuff until I bring it up. I'm going to cover everything in the script, but I'm not going to do it all at once. So I wasn't sure. Let me talk about this awake method here. So awake and start are similar, but they have their differences. Start is called once only when this object is first instantiated. Awake can be called multiple times, and it's called when an object goes from disabled to enabled. All right. So awake is also called before start in the game loop. In this situation, you don't need to worry about it. But this script, Canvas UI functions, actually lives in multiple scenes. So in this case, it's the same canvas root. I'm placing this script on all four. So you can think of that this method gets called every time you jump to a new scene. Now what's happening is that every time that we jump to a new scene using one of these buttons, this script gets instantiated and we run through this, and it goes to the scene manager. It says get the active scene. We can only be in one active scene at a time. Remember, we have 4 of them, and we can only be at one at any given moment. So I can introduce this variable. This is a variable of type scene, and I needed Unity Engine.scene management to have this variable. It's a class coming from the scene management, and it holds all the information relevant for a scene. It's a data structure for a Unity scene, and it's called current scene. And so I load up whatever the current scene is, and I load it into this variable and store it for later reference. And then I do a switch statement, and I pass in current scene. Remember, it's a data structure for an entire scene, and the only thing I'm actually interested in right now is the string, is the name of it. So this is one data member of this larger data structure. Oop, sorry. Sounds like there's an emergency with fire trucks. I'm just gonna wait just a half second. Sorry. You know, I think I'm gonna. So I'm gonna stop the video at this. I think it's like a parade. It doesn't seem to be stopping. Sorry about it. I'll start up a new video.